Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. This is going to be number 15. We're going to be talking about woody propagation. We want to thank everyone for listening ahead of time. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we're grateful for all the support that we get. Just want to throw a quick reminder out there that if you do like the podcast, please share it and subscribe and like and do all those things. We also have the Twitter account that you can follow us, and the Twitter account is @thehorticult. Just articles that I like about gardening and certain kind of plants that I think are good for our landscape. But some of those things, some personal things that I like, and good information out there. I like to share it mostly on Twitter, so join that if you want. And we're gonna get right into this episode. Me and Brad talk about woody propagation. Let's get it on. This is Blaine.
And this is Brad.
And we are the Horticult.
Yeah, propagation of hardwood cuttings. Mm-hmm. And there's really not much to it. But it's kind of a cool thing. And I don't know of any particular solution, like why anybody would just do this out of the blue, unless they were trying to sell thousands of these things.
That was one thing that we kind of came across in trying to figure out a strategy for this. Was if you get one shrub, you could make 10.
Yeah.
So you could, a gallon shrub would be around 30 more, Is it less than $30 or is it more than 30?
I think anymore you're looking at a gallon.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at anywhere from like $8.99 to...
Oh, really? That cheap?
Yeah.
For a shrub?
For a gallon.
Okay.
Yeah, $8.99 on up to, so I can't imagine more than $25.
So this is more like penny pinchers. Maybe I was thinking 5
Yeah.
gallons. 5 gallon would be more like around 30, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's more what I'm
But
thinking.
see, with that though, you're looking at that 5 gallon is a 2 to 3 year old shrub.
Yeah. Well established.
Yeah.
Ready to rock. Where
So,
you
yeah.
propagate these mothers, you're looking 2 to 3 years out.
Yep. To get it to the same size.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say it's more of kind of the enthusiast, kind of a hobby to see if you can do it.
It's a cool thought. And this is kind of one of the things that, as horticulturalists, we like. This is like part of you're cloning a plant. You're literally going to copy that plant's DNA and make a new plant.
Yep.
And that's something that we get off on a little bit, It's like we like that kind of interaction with these plants.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, it's pretty. I freaking grew that mother freaker from another freaking plant. It was its branch, and I turned it into a shrub.
Well, and that's the other thing too is with hardwood cuttings, and actually all cuttings. So if you group all the plants that you can clone, and you say, "Oh, well, I know I can do herbaceous type plants." That makes a lot of sense. But what about a maple tree? Well, as a matter of fact, you can clone and grow a maple tree from a maple tree, which is totally strange. But you have to take that cutting at the right time of year. Mm-hmm. And so just so that I can explain that there's 4 different categories of cuttings. There's herbaceous, which is very soft wooded, not even wooded. It's more of like a kind of a squishy stem. Any kind of succulent or coleus or salvia or veronica or anything like that would be an herbaceous cutting. And those are typically taken in spring, summer, fall. There's a softwood cutting, And those cuttings are from deciduous trees, evergreen trees, and shrubs. And the timing is spring, early summer. So softwood, spring, early summer. Semi-hardwood, summer, fall. Semi-hardwood, it's the same plant material, trees, shrubs, deciduous, evergreen, but it's just the timing that you take that cutting. And it makes a difference. So for example, like a maple, you take a semi-hardwood cutting. So you're going to take that cutting in summer to fall area, and it's proven to root better when you take a cutting from that period of the year than it is any other time throughout the year. So anyway, then you come to your final category of cuttings, and that is your hardwood cutting, which is taken in the dormant stage of a deciduous tree or shrub during the winter months, when everything is dormant and quiet. And I bring that up now, and because it's something that you can do at this time of year, and this is a great time to take those cuttings, those hardwood cuttings.
So even like, say I'm up in the mountains and it's been way warm. I know some plants are affected by temperature. Some are affected by light, or it's a mix of both, of when they wake up from their winter dormancy. Would you have to put rootstock on a cutting of a maple or a hardwood? You could grow roots off of it if you time it right.
So are you talking about grafting?
What did I say?
Rootstock.
Yeah, grafting. So you'd have to graft that to the rootstock, or are you just growing your own freaking roots?
Yeah, you're growing your own roots from a branch out of that tree. Crazy to even think about that. But
because you still do the dip and hormone stuff to get the roots to start.
Yep. Yeah, so what you want to do, so if you are interested in doing hardwood cuttings, you're bored, you're like, oh man, I want to see if I can replicate my ginkgo tree, which, as we know, is an awesome variety to try to do that with.
That'd be fun.
And you have a ginkgo tree that you can take those cuttings from. Actually, well, I'm not going to advocate for going down to like the city trees or anything like that, but
you don't need a lot though, right? You don't. Or
no,
do
you don't. You don't need a lot, but it is good if you're going to do this little experiment to take many cuttings, multiple cuttings. So I mean, if I were to do this, I would take a minimum of 10 cuttings of one variety. And I say that because not all cuttings will root equally. Mm-hmm. Some might be slower, some might be faster, some might not root at all. So,
kind of playing the percentages a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's kind of a cool thing that after the fact, if you've done everything right, then you can be like, oh man, that maple actually did a lot better than that ginkgo. Or, I mean, it's just kind of fun to compare and contrast. So thinking about different varieties. But shrubs are... I mean, I certainly think, oh, what trees are, could I propagate from cutting? But shrubs are actually quite a bit easier. I mean, they are, in a way, they're a multi-stemmed tree, so they have a tendency to need to propagate themselves more with broken branches and things like that lay down on the ground, or the crown gets buried a little bit too deep, and then so it sends off a rhizome or a stolon, and just boom, there's a new shrub right next to it. So anyway, let's see. I would start with a soil medium of 50% peat moss and 50% either sand, coarse sand, or perlite. All of which you could get at your local nursery.
So you're making your own
Yep.
potting mix.
Making your own potting mix, yeah, as far as trying to get roots to grow on a stem.
Do you want to fertilize it? Or do you want to mix some like granule fertilizer in there with it? You just want to...
You could, some type of an Osmocote style fertilizer where it's going to slowly release over time. So that cutting, which if you think about it, the cutting doesn't need any fertilizer right off the bat. And actually, if there's too much fertilizer, it will delay the rooting. So that would be kind of more something you could add down the road. So as you start out, you're looking at peat moss, perlite, or peat moss and sand, 50-50, really easy. Get any kind of a container that has drainage, and in some cases, not a container at all, but rather like any kind of crate. Actually, a crate would work really well because it does have some kind of that open sides for good porosity. So when you water these things in, it drains out really, really well. You don't end up with like anaerobic issues down the road.
So like decay on the root systems.
Yeah. So you want to have sharp drainage with this. So whether you're using an old pot or container, some kind of a basket or crate or pan that has a lot of really good drainage. You want to cut those. You want to take those hardwood cuttings from branches, lateral branches in particular, not so much the terminal branches, but lateral. And you want to go about 5 to 6 inches on up to 12 inches for your cuttings, depending on what variety you're cutting those from. You certainly don't want to hack the mother plant or tree to pieces and kind of leave that in a poor situation. Good luck.
That would be another reason why you use shrubs. They can handle a lot more removal.
Heavier pruning, yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, you take those stems and a nice pair of clean, sharp pruners. If you need to clean your pruners, which is a good idea before any kind of a cut, whether you're pruning or taking cuttings, it's going to be rubbing alcohol or a bleach solution of 10%. Either one of those works really, really, really well. Anyway, so you've disinfected your pruners. You go out and you take your 10 cuttings from your ginkgo tree, and then you've got your soil. You've mixed your 50-50 peat moss and perlite or sand, and go ahead and scrape or scrape or cut about an inch from the bottom of your cutting. So you need to know which is the top and which is the bottom of that cutting. Does that make sense? You need to know which is the bottom, like bottom meaning closest to the trunk versus the top. So keep all of those aligned and organized. And then on the bottom part of that cutting, go ahead and scrape or cut into that. Leave a 1 inch scrape mark down just down one side of the bark.
So like just like a line.
Mm-hmm.
You're not removing a lot of the bark. You're just a little line.
Yep. So if you had a potato peeler, like one of those old things that people used to use anymore.
I think I got 2.
Yeah. So if you used one of those and just simply did a 1 inch high scrape down the bottom, that would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. So then you dip it into the rooting hormone, and they have powders, they have liquids, and they have different ratios depending on what type of cutting that you're growing. So an herbaceous cutting has very soft, tender cells. You go at a much lower rate, and in the greenhouse with a lot of the herbaceous stuff we grow, 100 parts per million. Which is kind of a safe amount. You start going into hardwood cuttings, and you're looking at upwards of between 300 and 500 parts per million. Go ahead and dip those ends in, tap off the excess. If it's a powder, go ahead and tap off the excess so that it doesn't. It's an acid,